Alright, we are back for another pre-race predictions video. We are getting this one done pretty early. This should be Monday AM when I am submitting this. Of course, Canada time, so it might be afternoon for potentially a couple people who may or may not watch. Well, what am I kidding, may not watch. You are watching this if you're hearing me talk. So we are going to do our pre-race prediction, and we are going to talk about some of these drivers that are here this way, that way. I even made a mental note that to point opposite of the microphone, and instead I pointed right at it. So we're going to talk about these guys, and of course we are going to start with qualifying. I forgot to layer them, but that is okay. We'll talk about them still in order from qualifying. So down, starting at the bottom, we've got Zhou Guanyu. Sauber proved to have a truly awful car in Monaco, and granted that could be just a Monaco spec, but it's kind of really hard to take into consideration just at the same time how bad Zhou was also in the race. He actually got overtaken multiple times. That's not good. I'm a big supporter of Zhou, but that is not good. Logan Sargent will be just ahead of him. That won't really shock anyone. Bottas, I put just in front of that group. I think the car is crap. He's going to have trouble getting out of Q1. Even as good of a driver as he is, he's going to have trouble getting out of Q1. After that, I put Pierre Gasly. I think he had himself a little bit of a high moment, but with Gasly, those don't tend to come consistently. So I think he's going to have himself a little bit of a setback, at least in qualifying. After that, I got Kevin Magnussen. He has been in poor form this season, and that will continue. In P15, Daniel Ricciardo. I think they don't quite have the car for this track that some other teams do. I think he can make it into Q2, but I wouldn't expect him or Tsunoda to get out of Q2. Alex Albon, I think he's going to have a good run in qualifying. He's done well in Canada in the past. I think that can at least get him out of Q2. I don't know anything beyond that, but I think P14 for qualifying, that would be a good result for him. Esteban Ocon, he does get the most out of the car, and he had an awful week last time out in Monaco, but I don't expect that to continue, at least not during qualifying. He's still pretty decent over one lap. P12, I've got Lance Stroll. I don't think Aston Martin have a good car, but I don't think Lance has actually been as bad. Ever since China, he's been turning it around a little bit. I gotta give credit where credit is due. He's been decent. I don't think he'll be enough to get into Q3 or points, but I think he'll have himself a decent weekend. Yuki Tsunoda in P11, he has absolutely been on top form. I don't think that'll get him into Q3, but because the car is just simply not there, but I think he's been on top form. There's no reason to see that not continuing. P10, Fernando Alonso. He's not been in top form the last few races, but it's Fernando Alonso. He's still one of the greatest drivers. Unless he's just completely fallen off, completely given up, it's hard to imagine that becoming a consistent run for him, and I don't think anyone wants to see that. So I'm at least seeing him get into Q3. And P9, I've got Nico Hulkenberg. I think Haas have the third best car for this track as of right now. Granted, of course, we're still set to see if there's going to be any upgrades to any of the teams, but as of right now, I think Haas have the third best car for this track. Note I say for this track and not in general, because I think Haas dominate, not dominate, but they're very, very, very good right now at having a low drag setup. Think to Williams of a couple years past. Everywhere else, they're kind of all right, but their top speed has been fantastic. So I think that's one reason why Haas can be competitive. After that, I've got the combo of Russell and Hamilton. No one's really too shocked to see them there. And the real battle comes kind of in front of that. I've got Oscar Piastri in P6. He's been excellent the last couple rounds, but he's had a lot of bad luck going for him this season. And while I'm not necessarily expecting bad luck, I just don't think he's quite the driver as those in front of him. Well, I think he's been outperforming Perez, but Perez is still driving in a Red Bull. So that's why I've got Perez in P5, because he's still been Perez. He's not been performing well. So for that reason, I still think he gets outperformed by the two Ferraris and Lando Norris. Going into that grouping, we've got Sainz and Norris. I'm keeping those two together again this week, basically. They had themselves a very good, I wouldn't say back and forth in Monaco, because they maintained basically the same order through the entire weekend. minus Sainz's lockup that he had and got given back to him for some stupid reason, in my opinion. In my opinion, that is very stupid that that got given back to him. But we're not here to discuss that. And yeah, so I think Norris will edge out Sainz in qualifying. I think McLaren actually have the better car right now. But Charles, you can't deny his one lap pace is still amazing. He's in top form right now the last few races. You can't deny that. He's just on a good run right now. But Max Verstappen will still get pole position. It's just going to happen. I think this track doesn't really have the same issues that Monaco does for them. So I think he'll be back in form. And then for race position, I've actually formulated up my pre-race to add a little bit more volatility between the qualifying and the race, thankfully, because I like to see some transition too. So I think Sainz will actually end up outmatching Norris. I think he's just going to have it this week. He's always been good at strategizing. Heck, he almost got the win in Canada a few years ago because they got the strategy right. Verstappen was the faster car, but Ferrari actually got the strategy right, and Sainz almost won that race for that reason. I think that actually would have been his first race at that time, although he won very shortly after in the UK. And excuse me. I could feel my voice clogging up a little bit. The next few drivers I've got all basically sticking in their order. I've actually got Alonso and Hulkenberg swapping positions. I think that is solely on the quality of the driver. I think Alonso is top tier. He's absolutely is still a top tier driver, just doing everything he can for the team. And I think Hulkenberg is just not at that level. I think he's got a good car that kind of sometimes... I think the car makes him look better than he is. Like, I'm shocked that he's going to still be around next season. Absolutely shocked. Yuki, top form, but not enough with that car to get into the points. Stroll, having a decent race. Ricardo, I think he'll move up a couple spots. Bottas, I think he is actually in pretty good form right now. But if... he just needs Sauber to not let him down. That's really all that needs to go his way, is for Sauber to not mess things up for him. And he can get a decent result. Alex Albon, I don't think that Williams' car is there. At least not for this track, not where it was last year. If he gets a good qualifying, sure, yeah, he can still do that DRS game. But I don't think that will work out for him this year. Pierre Gasly, while I still have him getting like a decently poor qualifying performance, I think he's still decently good in the race and will move up at least a spot, because I've got Esteban dropping down a few spots. I don't know what it is with my formulas, but they saw Esteban and Kevin both losing a decent amount of positions. That could be factored in because of how many the DNFs are gone. Well, I think Ocon's only gotten the one, but I think Magnussen has been regularly losing positions in races. So I think that's kind of what my formula is calculating for there. And yeah, we're not even gonna talk about Zhou. He's gonna qualify bad, but he's actually pretty decent in a race. And I would say on the heavy fuel, I think he's actually pretty decent. I think he'll be able to do a good job at least getting past Sargent and catching up to the group in front of him. And I think Magnussen is just going to find a way to mess up. I think that's what's going to jump up Zhou a couple spots. And then Logan Sargent is just going to be Logan Sargent and end up at the back of the grid. There isn't really anything to really talk about there. Sargent's just been awful. And while I don't see him getting replaced mid-season, I wouldn't count it out. And I don't think there's a chance he's back next year. And then for my drivers of the day, I've got Carlos Sainz. I don't really know who to pick for driver of the day, but if he actually has a battle for the podium and comes out on top, that's why I picked him for driver of the day. Worst driver of the day, my formula is calculated Esteban to lose the most positions, so I put him in the worst driver of the day. The driver that's going to over-deliver, right now I have Fernando Alonso, because in my opinion, that car does not deserve to be in the points, but by my calculations, right now he's going to end up with 2 of them, so that's a pretty good job of over-delivering on that car. And then the driver that's going to under-deliver will be Kevin Magnussen, because he has a car that should be competing for mid-level points. But he's going to finish only ahead of Logan Sargent right now, according to my calculations. So that would be a major under-delivery. Undelivery? Is that the word? I don't know. But what do you think of my predictions? Thank you very much for watching. At the same time, if you aren't already, give me a follow down there on TikTok, Twitter, We do live streams on Twitch as well. But yeah, I would love to see you. Thank you very much for hanging around, and let me know what you think. Take care.